Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Tomahawk Futura assembly build video series. This is number 3 in the series. If this is your first time finding my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. Give the video a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, any video ideas, make sure you guys listen down below or feel free to shoot me an email and get in touch with me that way. All right, guys, so with the Futura, we are done the back end. We're done the turbine install. In this video, we're going to be focusing on the main wings and getting the front portion of the plane in, installing the landing gear. This might end up being one more video. It might end up being 2 more videos, but it's going to be somewhere in that realm. So anyways, guys, without further ado, we're going to pull the wings out and get started with those. All right, guys, so here's the left wing. And pretty straightforward how it's set up. We've got our aileron surface here. The control rod's going to be coming on the outside. The flap, the servo mount is inside the wing, and that's an internal linkage, which is nice and simple. And then we've got the gear mount in here. Bob, our painter who did the work on this wing, he did a great job and ran string lines, which is awesome. Thank you, Bob. Now, one thing I really love about this Tomahawk gear is, number one, it's Festo Fittings. So there's a nipple on the upside, and there's an actual 4mm Festo fitting on the downside. So the down has lots of good pressure, and it uses the smaller 3mm line or regular air line on the upside. So these lines, I just clipped the last little tip off the lines, reinstalled them, and we should hopefully be able just to drop this gear in. Now, one thing I'm going to do first is I'm probably going to run those servo lines to this side, just so we're not dealing with that. But I'm going to get that kind of sorted out and figure out what I'm going to do first here. All right, guys. So logical next step here is we mounted the left aileron servo on the left cover. Now we want to plug this in, make sure that the servo horn centers. Make sure we Loctite our screw, but we're going to make sure that centers first. So our left aileron is channel number 6, and we are fairly centered. We're going to have to add some sub-trim in there. There we go. So we added 40 points of sub-trim. We're now centered. We're going to pull that screw out and make sure it's Loctited. Alright, guys, so that servo is all installed, went together beautifully. We got the arm hooked up. Everything's nice and centered as far as the surface itself goes. And we've got tons of movement there. So that's good. Next thing I'm going to do, I think, is set up the flap. And then the last thing we're going to do is plug in or install the landing gear again. Alright, guys, I'll show you how I set up the flap here. So we've got the actual linkage arm hooked up to the flap side, but it's loose on this side. The servo is installed, and the servo is now plugged in. So the servo is plugged into the left flap, you can see there. Now what we want to do is we've got to assign the left flap to what we use for the flap switch. So on the 28X, we go into the channel settings. We're going to go to, so right flap, we'll just do that one now anyways, and we're going to assign that to that switch. We're going to go to channel 11, and we're going to assign that to that switch. And then while we're here, we might as well do the gear channel. We're going to assign that to our gear switch, which is that one. Okay, so now if we go back to the home screen and we go into the flap setting, so we're going to activate the flap system.
Flight mode 0, flight mode 01.
And now we've got all of our flap switches. Okay, so we've got normal, which is where we want to set the neutral point on the servo. So we want to adjust this linkage and everything. So it works well. So right now I've got nothing hooked up. I'll get this hooked up and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. But right now our current position is normal or flaps off, which means switches forward with the way I set up a radio. All right, so that gives you an idea what geometry we're looking at here for the flap. So that is flap off. We do have a little bit of adjustment we have to make there, but what we want to do is we want to get the other side mechanically very, very similar. The same would be ideal, and that's going to ensure that our flaps operate almost evenly without any adjustments in the radio. So I'm just going to snug up that the clevis on the 440 rod, and then I'm going to put the screw in for the servo arm. Okay guys, so we're all set up here on this wing. So we've got left elevator moving the correct direction. So I'm applying left elevator on the stick, and left elevator is moving up. We've got 0 flaps, which we have just a hint of movement there, so there's no surface or no tension on the servo. First flap, I'm just guessing on travel here for right now. And then full flap, we're almost maxed out as far as travel goes. So that's left wing surface is set up. Next thing we'll do is we're going to plug that gear in and run all the lines to this side, and we'll see how that all hooks up. All right guys, so we pretty much have the wiring all figured out on this wing. Now with the way this wing is organized, there's really no channels or anything to route all the connections through, and the connections actually plug into the fuselage right here. So we're all open with the gear when it comes down. So what we want to do is make some sort of channel system to allow the all the lines to stay out of the way. So what I did was I just used some of this cable organizer stuff, which has the split in it. So I've got the smaller size, which is this size, and then I've got a bigger size as well too. So I glued with some shoe goop, trusty shoe goop, and bent screwdriver. Glued some smaller material here, so these pieces will be able to go in that channel because the split is right there facing us. And then I glued some of the bigger stuff right there. So the cable will come around this corner like this, and then bend, go through that bigger piece, and that'll allow it to move and flex as well too. So that should work perfectly. So we're going to let that cure, and what we're going to do is basically do the exact same thing to the other wing, but that's the wing progress on the Futura. All right guys, so it's the next day. Those little pieces of tubing that I glued in there worked extremely well, and it's just a nice simple way to hold the cables, and they're flexible, removable, and all that stuff. So this wing's done. Now when I put this wing on, it fits nice and tight, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. The other wing I put on yesterday, and we've got a little bit of a gap here. Now this wing has been repaired, it looks like, on the inside face that butts up against the fuselage. There's some extra maybe some high sol and epoxy and things like that on this face of the wing, so that's as tight as we can get it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of sanding here, and I'll kind of show you guys what I'm doing. I'm just going to put a light up there and kind of see where it's butting in and hitting the wing. Might have to do a little bit of sanding. Actually, I did a little bit of sanding on the flap here because when it was up, it was hitting the fuselage. But that's better now. So we will have to pay a little bit of attention to this wing. I haven't done anything with this wing yet as far as putting the stuff in. The left wing is done. So what I'll do is I'll plug the left wing in, and I'll show you guys the difference between the fit here. Okay, so left wing here. Now this wing actually has a bit of a gap as well too. I'm sure when that bolt is put in from the inside, it'll tighten that up. But so this one does have a little bit of a gap, which is good or fine. But when we look at this side, we've got a bit more of a gap. So all I'm going to do is take my light, and I'll try and capture this on camera for you guys. So there's a little bump at the front there that's hitting, and we've got a little bump kind of in this section right here. That's hitting as well. I think I got that on camera for you. So all I'm going to do is slide the wing out a little bit, sand that down with a file, and see if we can get that to fit a little bit better. I'm sure it's not going to be a lot of work, but I'll show you guys the finished product here. Alright guys, so we've got a lot better fit on the wing. Now one thing you want to be careful of if you're doing something like this is you really have to take a look with that light what is touching, right? So in this case, it wasn't the top or the bottom skin of the wing that's touching. It was the repair on the bolt hole and all this kind of stuff that looks like it's been fixed before. So initially I was taking the my flat file and filing like this, which worked good while it was high. But then once we got low and kind of level with the skin, if we were to continue using the flat file, we're going to end up actually grinding into the wing itself, like the top and the bottom skin. So what I did at that point is I took my my palm sander, which allowed me just to sand off the interior portion, and now that wing is a much better fit. So now that wing's fitting a lot better, we are going to do the parts and assembly and everything on that wing. I'm not going to show you the process. It's exactly the same as the left wing, but I'll get that done, and then we will continue on with the installation progress. So once the wings are done, then all we need to do is run those servo leads from this point forward. All of our air leads are already run. Okay guys, other wing is done. We're just waiting for the little plastic split pipes to cure. I glued them in with shoe goop, and I just got a couple tools there holding them in place. So that wing's done. Now one thing I noticed here is we have to check the alignment on the gear. Now you definitely can't use the wing root to align these gear because it's not square, right? So the gear looks pretty good, but once we get the wings mounted, what we're going to do is flip the plane over, and we'll use the carbon dowel trick just to see how we're lined up, because we want a couple degrees of toe in on those tires. But that's it. So we're going to move on to kind of completing the wiring and stuff. Probably put the front gear in next. Now we did glue this together with the 610 from SBus Systems, so we have to drill out the holes that were filled with epoxy, and we might have to do a little bit of sanding on the side of the rails there because we've got a little bit of epoxy coming out. So we'll do that next, and do the little bit of sanding we have to do in the front end, and we'll get that front gear mounted. Alright guys, made some good progress here. The front gear is installed. That was fairly straightforward, just drilled out the previous holes and everything worked well. All the air lines for the gear were already there, just snipped off the ends to make new surfaces and plug those in. So you can see one receiver is installed right there. I use these awesome mounts that I get printed up for me, so that works absolutely fabulous. And then we're going to put the other one, I think, right up top here, and probably going to glue a straw on or a piece of tubing so we can have one vertical, and then we'll have this one probably coming out at an angle or something like that. So, but that's kind of all set up. We've installed the receiver, or the power bus box system, the 11BPX from D-Force in there, and that's going to work good there. So we do have the on-off switch, which is the flag switch that came with this one, and so this was included with the kit versus like an on-off slider, a soft switch, and I actually like these ones better, so it's kind of cool that this 11BPX came with this unit. I was thinking about installing it down here, but I think what I'm going to do is I might install it right up top here on the main startup board. Not that it really matters, because when you're starting this plane up, the entire canopy comes off. So, but it would look nice and clean up there as well too. So I think I'm going to do that. Next thing to do, I think the other wing that we were waiting to dry is done. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to put the wings on, get those servo leads run from the wings forward to the receiver section, and then after that it's pretty much just kind of cleaning up the wiring and doing some final touches here. So, all right, guys. So the pin flag switch is installed. Obviously, I did end up putting it on the main startup board. Installed the other antenna here and just used one of my 3D printed clips to hold one side of the antenna, and then I glued on this little plastic tube, so we had a vertical antenna. So now we've got lots of different axes covered. I did end up putting the servo leads on the power box wire, and we've got all the servo leads run to the front now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fire up the receiver and then start plugging all these leads in and get those plugged into the right appropriate outputs on the controller. And then we'll start to organize the final organization of the wires. All right, guys, so I just had to change my layout of my vertical antenna just a little bit, because when you go to put the canopy on, that cross brace lines right up with the brace in the fuselage. So what I ended up doing was moving the receiver down here. The receiver would have been fine, but I still wanted one antenna to be vertical, just so we cover all the different axes. So I mounted the receiver on there, put the pipe through the board, and then just ran the antenna through there. The other one's still in the same spot. So that all works out good. Everything else is hooked up. We only have to figure out the battery situation. Front gear's installed. Operates beautifully. And everything works well. Yeah, kept the front receiver mount that I had in there before, but I had to move it back a little bit because when this front gear retracts, it comes very, very close to the front board there, so that was interfering a little bit, but the way things are lined up now, everything is very interference-free, so happy with the way everything worked out. Basically, everything's hooked up. All of our surfaces are good. All the wiring's done. We're going to go through and we're going to put some shoe goop on all the wires just to make sure that they stay and they don't come out. And the last thing we have to do with this aircraft is programming. Everything else works good. Gear works good. Brakes are good. We ran the turbine already in the previous video. So it's just the programming now at this point and the C of G, and we are done. All right, guys, there is the plane flipped over. Reason I had it flipped over is I was just tucking all the wires into the little cable holders, and so that's done, and we are all set up nicely there. So there's the underside of the plane. It's quite a different perspective on these Futuras when you see the underside, just because of this big scoop here for the inlet, lots of surface area on the body to create lift. So it's kind of a unique setup, but that's basically it, guys. We are practically done. We do have to do a little bit of CG checks. Our CG point's marked right there. Now, the CG point is supposed to be 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter behind the main wing tube. The main wing tube's about here. So we have it set to, or the mark is at about 15 millimeters behind the wing tube. 20 is the front of the dot. A lot of people are back about 27, 25. 10 is way too nose heavy. So it's a small little range there, but gives you an idea where we're actually going to set that thing up. And yeah, so anyways, that's our CG point. I'll flip this back over and we'll do our CG checks. Okay, guys, so here's the almost final weight of the Futura. So we're at 24.3 pounds. So we're probably going to end up being about 25 pounds with all the batteries in there. So somewhere between 24.5, 25 pounds. Now we'll go to CG. I've already plugged in all the numbers. So right now we're about half a pound, 0.6 pounds nose heavy. Now I don't have all the batteries in here yet too. I'll show you what I have. So we've just got this one single large life battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the batteries out of my Ultra Flash, which are two smaller life batteries, put those in here and see how it works out. but I have a feeling when I take this battery out, we're actually probably going to be bang on with our CG. So let's do that and see. All right, so battery has been removed. So we've got 0 batteries in there right now, and we are still 0.15 pounds nose heavy. So just a little bit nose heavy, so about 20 grams, which isn't much. So anyway, so I'm going to put my batteries from my Ultra Flash in the plane, and we'll see how things work out. All right, so with the 2 life batteries and a 2000 milliamp LiPo, we are 0.8 pounds nose heavy. So what I think we're probably going to end up doing is we're going to be maybe running the turbine battery up here and probably putting the receiver packs in this area. So we do have these mounts that were put on there before, which I'm assuming probably were for batteries, but if we were to put the receiver batteries back here and the 1 LiPo in the front, let's see how that works out. Okay, so with both life batteries, receiver batteries back here, and with the LiPo for the turbine up front, we are 0.3 pounds nose heavy, 1/3 of a pound nose heavy, which is good. Which is better for the first flight. Now, we don't want to necessarily bury the turbine battery because it is a LiPo battery, so we want this to be easy to take in and out. So there's a good chance that, and this isn't my aircraft, so I won't be, messing with the CG a whole bunch. Leave that up to the owner. But what I would do in this situation is I'd leave the LiPo up front, put those life batteries in the back, and run it that way. And then if I needed to make it a little bit more tail heavy, I'd start adding a little bit of weight to the back, which is something I've already started doing with my Ultra Flash. So I think that's what we're going to go with. But we don't have any batteries purchased for the plane yet anyways, but I think that kind of makes the most sense. And what we'll probably end up doing is getting some battery leads done up so that they're all ready to install those batteries right there. And I think that is about it. All right, guys, and as a final step, we have enlisted trusty bent screwdriver to install all of the shoe goop everywhere. So we've gone through and all the different wire connections on the receiver, on the ECU, and we put a little bit on the turbine as well too, just on the main MPX connector there, just because that's nice to make sure it's secure. And of course, like always, if you haven't watched any of my other videos, extremely easy to take the shoe goop apart in case you ever need to. So essentially this plane is done. 100% complete, all set up. We have the CG kind of figured out. As I've mentioned, we're going to put the turbine battery up here, a 2000-ish 2-cell LiPo. We're going to put the 2 life batteries here, which is right over the CG. The CG is just behind the wing tube, which is right there. So that's fine. And that's it, guys. So everything else on the plane is completed. It all worked out very, very well. Obviously a quick project, hour-wise, probably put in about 30 hours into putting this thing back together because it was already kind of laid out and everything was fairly straightforward. So that's it, guys. I'm going to put the gear up, and then we're going to take this thing apart and get it ready to deliver to the owner. All right, guys, so that is everything with the Tomahawk Futura build. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you got something from it. I try and, whether I've repeated it in a previous video or not, I try to always tell you guys what I'm doing and the process I'm going through while I do it. So hopefully you got something out of this video. Guys, if you have any suggestions for any future videos, make sure you list them down below. You can also shoot me an email as well, too. I love to hear what you guys are thinking, what you'd like to see a video made on. But that's it. So this thing is ready to go, ready to remaiden again, and It's going to be a fun airplane. I've seen this thing fly many times, and it's an absolute dream with that 140 Newton Jet-Munt's turbine. Goes like a rocket. Not a fast rocket, but a steady rocket. Anyways, guys, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below if you have not done so already. If this is your first time finding my channel, hit that subscribe button down below. That's everything, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you in the next video.